Our gospel today gives us the much beloved quote of John 3:16, "For God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, that the world might not perish but might have eternal life." And that quote is very much worth our prayer and reflection. But I'd like to focus on the latter part of the gospel, where St. John talks about those who perform works of evil and how they want those to be kept in darkness, and those who live in the truth, that they welcome the light. It reminds me of one of St. Ignatius's rules for discernment, rule number 13. St. Ignatius says this: "When the enemy of our human nature, the devil, tempts a just soul by his wiles and seductions, he earnestly desires that these be received secretly and kept in secret. But if that soul manifests them to a confessor or to some other spiritual person who understands his deceits and malicious designs, the evil one is very much vexed. For he knows that he cannot succeed in his evil undertaking once his evident deceits have been revealed." All of us, because of our fallen human nature and because of our own personal sin, struggle with mixed motives. And sometimes we don't want to acknowledge that. Sometimes we want to say, "Oh, I'm too strong," or "I could have never been tricked." Maybe even sometimes in our confession, when we go to confession, we might try to rationalize our decisions. But humility foils the devil's plans. To be able to acknowledge that, yes, we are weak and we sometimes are tricked, can foil and bring to light the devil's plans so that we don't follow them any further. St. Ignatius talks about bringing bringing these motives to a confessor or to a spiritual director, if you have a spiritual director, as a way of bringing them into the light. And when we do so, we might not be able to see our motives so objectively ourselves, but maybe the other person might be able to help us see things objectively. Even being said, though, a lot of times, even in the act of bringing something to light, helps us to see more clearly what's going on. So when we live in the light, when we live in the truth, we have less of a chance of being foiled or tricked by the devil's plans. When we come before the Lord in humility and acknowledge that we can be tricked, God sheds his light on that situation and the devil's plans are foiled. And even as we do this, when we go to confession, when we talk to a trusted spiritual director, God helps to purify our hearts from those mixed motives. And more we can follow him more closely as we try not to live in the darkness. I mean, God knows our motives anyway, but instead to live in the light and allow the Lord's light, truth, and love to purify our hearts from mixed motives, that we can follow him more clearly and do the works of God, to perform works that can be shown in the light.